So the fifth week of Lent brings us into a beautiful gospel scene. It's from the Gospel of John, and it's the woman caught in adultery. We'll come to that in just a moment. I think what would be very interesting for all of us is to have a look at the second reading, which is from Philippians, because Paul there is articulating something that's most important for our moral life. So Paul is writing as an old man, probably tired, and he's writing about this great desire that he has within himself, saying, all I want to know is Christ and the power of his resurrection, so that I may imitate him in his death. This is a fascinating piece of Paul's writings. So just to sort of make it clear, historically, of course, Christ died and suffered and died and then rose again. That's historically how it played out. But that is not true in the moral life. In the moral life, what has to happen is the resurrection must enter us, as it does in our baptism and in the other sacraments as well. All of the sacraments have a resurrectional moment where we emit resurrectional grace that lifts us up into the very life of Christ. And so the resurrection has to enter us, and then what happens is we receive the grace then to die with Christ to our sin. So as I say, in the moral life, it's different to historically how it played out. First, historically, Christ's death and then his resurrection. But in the moral life, the resurrection must come first, enabling us, giving us the grace in order to die to ourselves and love our neighbour, to die to ourselves and to love God. Most important indeed. We'll never be able to really live the moral life without the resurrectional grace. And this is a most important point in what we call as moral theology. We can have all sorts of approaches to moral theology. The one that I'm most familiar with is what they call virtue ethics. I think it's very important. You look at the 4 cardinal virtues, the 3 theological virtues, very helpful paradigm. But even with that paradigm, the grace of the resurrection must come first if we are to live those 4 cardinal virtues and the 3 theological virtues. So that's a great way, this is a great way of sort of preparing ourselves now for the resurrection appearances, which will happen over the 50-day period just after Christ does rise from the dead on April the 20th this year. Finishing then with the gospel scene, which is the woman taken in adultery. How is it that she encounters Christ, his forgiveness, and Jesus saying to her, go away and sin no more? It's because of the grace of the resurrection. Christ is entering her and giving her that magnificent grace. What a moment that must have been for her when Christ died and rose again. She would have undoubtedly have felt this resurrectional grace inside. And really that's my prayer for every single one of you watching this video or reading this particular text on the Substack, is that this will be a great Easter where you feel the grace of the resurrection enter you, enabling you to live a more virtuous life.